Hey, this is Nate Friesen with the Lay It Down podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Susannah Friesen.
Excuse me. I'm the No.
Yeah, you are the co-host.
You're the host. Welcome, everybody, to season 2 of the Lay It Down podcast. As you can see, Nate has gotten a little bit more comfortable being co-host on the podcast. Keyword, co-host.
Look at me. I am the host now.
No, you're not. You didn't take over. We're both co-hosts, might I add, and we're going to be talking about a topic that we haven't talked about yet on the podcast, but it's going to be all about dating, marriage, singleness even. Yeah.
Good start.
Thank you. We've talked about this the last couple weeks, just trying to figure out what we're going to do this podcast episode about, but Nate and I had different experiences with dating growing up.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nate was a Christian his whole life, is still a Christian.
Yep.
But he was raised a Christian and I was not. So our dating experiences were quite different.
Drastically different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be asking Nate a bunch of questions. You might have seen, if you're watching on YouTube, that we aren't filming it. We're just recording today. My mother-in-law is sick. So she's been inhabiting the couch where we normally film. And
she's been taking up residence there for the last couple days.
Yeah, and it's just been a little bit harder to film when someone else is home. I'm thinking we might just honestly audio record until we move out and have like a space of our own where we do film.
That's news to me.
I just decided it right now.
Okay.
We can talk about it more later, but
yeah.
I think that's probably what I'll do because it's just so much work to like set up everything and then tear it all down. It's just a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Plus filming adds like another whole pressure to the podcast too, which I don't like.
Yeah, it can be an entirely different things because you also have to not only edit the audio, but then you also have to do the zooms and the transitions and add the intro and outro and all that stuff. So it's a lot more work for that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's true. I do still do the intro when I do the audio, but like I feel like once we have our own space and it's decorated the way we want it decorated and it's more aesthetically pleasing and it's just like the same every time, I think that would be better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you guys are watching on YouTube, I'm sorry, but for the unforeseeable future until we move out, which is hopefully this year, we are going to be just audio recording.
Yeah, I'm just going with the flow.
Yeah, he kind of has to.
Yeah.
After all, I started the podcast.
And so I was just invited on.
He was invited on and can be uninvited at any moment.
I may be a co-host currently, but to her, I'll always be a guest.
That's not true. I'm the one that asked you to be a co-host.
Yeah, well, you can un-co-host someone, so.
Well, we'll see how you do. We'll see how you do, kid.
Next episode will be, hey, welcome back to the Lay It Down podcast. I'm your only host, Susannah Friesen.
I'm the only host that will ever be hosting this podcast.
It sounds like Arwen's going to be joining us any second here. Here she comes. I can hear her.
Arwen, come here.
Come here.
Ah, there she is.
There she is.
Arwen has now joined to be our guest on the podcast. Okay, baby, you got to lay down.
Relax, okay? Good.
Got to lay down.
Oh,
no,
okay.
not on, Dad. Right. Oh, my God.
Here we go. She is currently crushing me.
She actually is. She's like laying on your throat.
Yep. It looks like I'll be doing the rest of the podcast from here.
Arwen, you got to get off, Dad.
Okay, well, let's just continue.
Do you want to tell us like a little bit about your dating experience growing up as a teenager and as an early adult before me?
Yeah, mine was like way different than your story. I didn't get my first girlfriend until like, I think it was like 16 years old. Yeah, you were like dating in like kindergarten, yeah.
It's facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. So you got around town pretty good. But I didn't start dating until I was like 16. So yeah, and that was actually my one and only relationship before you. So
yeah,
I got lucky. You had to go through like 18 guys and then
I didn't go through 18 guys.
I'm just kidding.
18.
But you dated, like, you quote unquote, air quote, dated from kindergarten onwards. So
yeah, let me just do a quick count. You're distracting me. Just including you. I think there's like 9 guys throughout my life.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 50% of what I said, so it wasn't too far off.
Well, that's coming from kindergarten. I had a boyfriend in kindergarten.
Boyfriend, quote unquote, air quote.
Yeah, just like a best friend we hung out with, or I hung out with all the time. I was quite the nerd in elementary school. I used to hang out with this kid and his friends and reenact Star Wars at the very back of the playground.
I did that with my friends in like elementary school. We played Star Wars.
We're soulmates.
Yeah.
We were soulmates before we even met.
Actually, fun fact, my best friend nowadays was actually, so we would play Star Wars, and then like I would run around with like fake lightsabers, not fake, like air lightsabers, and then we would like be stabbing each other with those fake air lightsabers. And so I would run up behind him and stab him, and then he'd turn around and go, "Oh, I'm not playing." And I'd be like, "Oh, okay." So then I would like turn around and go to the next guy, and then he would stab me in the back. And he did that multiple times. Every time we played Star Wars. I know.
You actually had lightsabers though?
No, like air lightsabers, just like pretend. Make believe.
Okay, because you said fake lightsabers.
I know,
and then you said air lightsabers.
And then make believe.
Oh, well, that was ours too. We had make believe.
Yeah, make believe. And so we would always play that, and then anytime you got like stabbed, you were out. So he would pretend he wasn't playing, and then I would get stabbed because I turned my back on him, and that was just, it's a running joke even now. We joke about that.
Is that Owen?
So, yeah.
Even shout out to Owen. But like moral of the story or lesson of the story, don't turn your back.
Yeah.
Even on your friends.
Especially when you're playing Star Wars.
Especially when you're playing Star Wars. But yeah, so I was dating from kindergarten, and I don't think I've been single for more than like a month since then.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's you need some self-reflection time there.
You want to take some space and I can do it?
No, it's already too late for that. We're
too late.
We're already 6 years in.
I know.
But I was obviously single until 16, and then
well, did you ever try to pursue anyone?
Yeah. Did you look at any pictures of me? I was a nerd. I was a ginger with glasses. Like, I was like, that was before Ed Sheeran came on the scene and like lit up the whole pop stage for us gingers. Like we were the outcasts.
You were the no soul gingers?
Yes. I always got comments like that. So anyway,
I used to make comments like that.
Yeah, of course you did. But anyway, yeah, like I would pursue people, and like I had crushes on people from like elementary school, like late elementary school, like probably like grade, I don't know, 6 to 8. And then even like beginning of high school, but I never really like pursued anything. I mean, I guess I kind of did, but not really.
How would you pursue something?
Like just try and like hang around the person, like flirt
like
with
stalker?
them. No, like they were friends.
Oh, okay.
We were like friendly at that point, like friends, and like I would like them, and then like I would joke around with them, but then nothing would happen, or they would end up dating someone else.
I mean, I've heard your jokes, so.
Wow. I've heard you laugh at my jokes, so.
How do you know they're real laughs?
Oh, I know.
You don't know.
I do know. But anyways, so yeah, so I didn't really date until 16, and then that was my first and only major relationship before you. And then I was single for about a year before I met you. So I actually had some time to self-reflect and figure my life out.
Yeah, figure out who you were.
Well, not really figure my life out, but like figure out myself and who I was. And
yeah, I'd say we're both kind of still figuring out our lives.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I was single that was the longest I was. Other than like before that, my record's 16 years. Beat that. No.
I can't. Like I said, the most I've ever been single in my life was a month.
No.
Do not recommend, by the way.
Completely unhealthy. But
completely unhealthy.
That's
Heal from your baggage.
Different story for another day. But yeah, no, the longest I was like single between relationships, like I said, only had one before you. So longest was a year. And then we
met the love of your life.
Yeah.
You knew.
Fairy tale ending.
Okay. All right. Whatever. You know what? I'm going to pretend like that wasn't sarcastic and then move on with my life. You kind of know my dating history and what happened in my relationships. What do you think is different, or what do you think is important in Christian dating, or when you're trying to like pursue your wife, I guess?
Yeah. So I actually got really good advice from a teacher in probably, I think grade 7. Yeah, grade 7. My grade 7 science teacher Mr. Peterson. Shout out Mr. P if he's listening. Probably not, but
I don't even think he knows
if he is.
I do this. Or we do this.
Yeah, but he gave the class great advice back when, actually, so he started a Christian, not after school group, but we met at lunch break sometimes.
Okay.
And I would go, and he was actually a Christian, so he was like a great guy, and I still know him to this day. We still see each other occasionally, and he's still an awesome person, and great Christian role model. But he, I think it was during that he gave the advice, date to marry.
Yeah.
So don't date unless you can see yourself marrying that person.
I wish I got that advice.
Yeah. So like, and you may be like, what the heck does that mean? Like, how do you know you're going to marry somebody when you just start like meeting them or whatever? But like, get to know the person, and, you know, really get to know the person before you start dating them. And then even like if you do date, like don't date just to have fun, so to say, or like, oh yeah, like this isn't the person, but I'm having a good time with them so far or whatever, and I can't really see myself marrying them. Like if that's the case, then, you know, it's not really a relationship worth pursuing if you can't see yourself marrying that person. So I always kind of looked at my dating lens from that perspective, and like I became good friends with my first relationship before we started dating. And then like I was really young at that time too. Like you don't really have a good grasp on things when you're 16 years old.
Yeah.
And typically, I mean, for most people anyways, that's not the relationship that will become your marriage partner anyway. I got to know her, and then we started dating. Yeah. And then like I could see it out the relationship. Obviously it didn't work out, because that happens sometimes. But yeah, that was the good advice I had gotten at that point. So I feel like a lot of like a big difference between Christian and non-Christian relationships and dating is, you know, and this is not the case for every Christian relationship, but I feel like a majority of the time that Christians who date are dating to find their, you know, their wife or their husband. Whereas I feel like a lot of non-Christians are dating more so just kind of like for fun, feeling things out, and like, you know, finding someone that, oh yeah, I can have a good time with them for a little while and then whatever, or they just don't even think about the future with that person.
I think that was my experience. Like I didn't really think about marriage with some of them.
Yeah.
Well, like considering I was in kindergarten for majority, like not kindergarten for majority of these relationships. Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's talk about your most serious relationships which weren't until like high school.
All right. Yes, obviously
that's
we're
when
going to talk
things
about
like
that.
actually
That's
get
like
real.
when it actually matters.
Yeah.
So I had at least, I think I had I had 4 boyfriends in high school throughout my high school experience. What?
I only know about the 2 that were like your most serious ones.
Okay, I have Jordan, who I dated in grade 9 and like beginning of grade 10. Or maybe it was just grade 9, but yeah, he follows me. I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but and then I had Steve. No, actually, okay, so it went Jordan, then it went Jesse, then it went Steve, then it went Jesse, then it went Austin, and then it went Jesse again.
How many times did you date Jesse? I thought you went back to Austin like twice too.
No, Austin and I, we were together, and then like we were together for 4 years overall, but we had taken like breaks and like had separated during that.
Okay, first like thing, if you need to take breaks from your relationship, that's usually not a good sign going forward. Just an FYI.
Yeah, he's completely right. I think it was more so like the fear of being alone, and like we enjoyed each other's company when we did hang out, when he didn't have his friends over. But we did enjoy hanging out when we did hang out, and we had a lot of things in common. We didn't really talk about deep things or the future, if that makes sense. Like it was just kind of like a here and now relationship that lasted for 4 years total.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Just kind of like, you know, enjoy hanging out with this person. We have things in common, but like you're not thinking long term.
It's probably it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, you're not thinking long term, and you need to think long term when you're dating.
I think,
especially as a Christian, like I think you should be dating with the intention of finding your wife or husband.
Yeah, I think the only person that I really realistically thought about the future with was Jesse, because like we were best friends before we initially started dating, just like you and your ex were.
Yeah, and just want to clarify, like you're not always gonna know that person is going to be the person you're going to marry. But I think that you should have that intention and that, what's the word?
Bird is the word.
You should have the intention of like, yeah, this person I could see myself marrying. And I guess that's not intention, but like you should have that inkling or that intuition, I guess, that this seems like a good fit. And then you pursue the relationship that way. Because like I said, not every relationship that you think is going to end up in marriage does.
If you're talking about before, like have the inkling before you start dating?
Well, before, but even if you do start dating and in the beginning stages, like, I mean, it is kind of hard because you're in the honeymoon phase when you're in the beginning stages. But I think the big thing is that, and this isn't something that you're really going to know until you are older, is like that your major morals and ethics line up. I think that like one of the biggest things is that your faith, for sure, like sharing the same faith is incredibly important in a relationship because it can create a real division if you don't and you're unequally yoked, as Jesus says.
Yeah.
So I kind of forget where I was going with that. I think we're back on track here. Basically, making sure, like, the biggest thing to make sure is that your morals and boundaries and stuff and ethics and all that line up. And I think that's something that you can definitely discover when you're in the friend phase. And I think it's important to be friends before you pursue anything.
Yeah, a lot of people jump right in, aka me. And like the thing is that, okay, so like even when I went back to my ex multiple times, like we had a great relationship that first time. We were young, we were kids, we like were best friends, constantly laughed, like had a lot of things in common. But then once we got like had that time apart after the 4 years especially, we grew into different people but thought we could just kind of pick up where we left off. Moved in together a week into talking, basically. Got our first apartment.
Red flag.
Red flag. Waving the red flag. But during that year of our relationship together, we were not compatible at all. And it was very toxic during that whole time. And we didn't have the same. Like we were, like a lot of my insecurities came out. And a lot of baggage I had from the previous relationship came out. And I think we were just not compatible anymore. And like as much as I thought that he was going to be my husband one day, I don't think we would have been happy together. Thankfully, he's with someone. And then I'm obviously married to you. So like it worked out for the best. But
yeah, and that can happen too. Like people, like especially when you start dating when you're really young, and I'm talking like high school, like you change like from when you're 16 to when you're 24 and like life is actually setting in. You change as a person, you grow as a person, you become a different person than who you were back then. And sometimes that can create issues in a relationship because you start dating because, you know, you have the same priorities, you have the same views and outlooks and stuff like that. And then you grow up and like later in the relationship or later in life, if you try and get back together, you're just not the same people anymore. And so like it doesn't really work.
Yeah, definitely not. I've lived it. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's like a big thing, big dating advice, I guess, to start off with is that be friends with someone first. That's a big key thing. Be friends with them to see if, first of all, your views and your morals and your beliefs line up, and then see if you enjoy the person's presence and you enjoy spending time with them. If you guys connect on certain things outside of obviously your core beliefs and views, that's great too. Do that before you jump into a relationship because I think you're going to have a better shot at the relationship if you know all this and you've done all your homework going into it. You'll have a better idea and a better scope into the future if you've done all this beforehand.
Yeah.
And that's not 100% certainty, but it's kind of like spies. They got to do their reconnaissance before they go on their mission, right? Like you got to...
Okay, James Bond.
You're right. You gotta map out the layout. You got to do the whole homework.
Well, that didn't help you much, did it?
Like I said, it's not 100% foolproof.
No.
But it gives you a good starting place to decide whether that relationship is worth pursuing. And even then, sometimes those relationships teach you things that maybe God needed to teach you through that person and through that experience, but it wasn't meant to be the forever experience.
So what did you learn from your last relationship?
I learned that I, myself, hadn't prioritized my own faith at that time.
How so?
I was so caught up in our relationship that I neglected my own personal faith with God a lot, which then affected, you know, other areas of my life and affected our relationship and that kind of thing. But that was a big thing I learned, is that I needed to, so like we had connected because we went to the same church, didn't grow up, sorry. We went to the same church for quite a while. We met at youth group and through my parents who were friends with her parents, and we shared the same faith. But then I definitely could admit that her faith was stronger than my faith during our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And after our relationship, I really dug into my own faith and grounded myself in my own relationship with God and with Christ. So that was a big learning thing for myself. Obviously just little lessons kind of throughout the relationship that, I just learned and that kind of thing. But I think that was one of the big takeaways for sure that God taught me through that.
Yeah. I actually do know Nate's ex, and like we went to the same church. Like when we first started dating, Nate and I, we went to the same church and she attended too. And I definitely have to say that I did admire how strong her faith was, just from what I could see and like what other people told me, and just what I could see online and whatnot. Like her faith is so strong, and I really admired that and like looked up to her for that, even though we weren't like on a friendship level. It was something that I aspired to be. So like I think that she's a really great person, and has like a great faith, and like is definitely someone that other girls could look up to for sure. But yeah, like it wasn't good that your faith was like put on the back burner for that relationship.
No, and that was definitely my own fault. And I was young, and I don't want to blame it on that because there are a lot of young people who have strong faith, but I was young and I think my priorities weren't straight for sure.
It's so easy to get caught up in a relationship though when you're young too.
It is. It's very easy to get caught up in the relationship. You're caught up in the feelings and the euphoria of a new relationship and the new relationship feeling and that kind of thing. And it can be easy just to get lost in this person rather than remembering to put your faith in Christ and to put your faith in God, and also to get your satisfaction from Him and your worth and happiness to come from Him rather than the person you're with. Because if you're relying on the person you're with to make you happy or to satisfy your soul, you're gonna end up disappointed and broken, because man is gonna disappoint, like no matter who you're with, they'll never be enough to always fill that, like always. Well,
not even always, like they won't ever fill that hole.
No.
Like even as much as you hope that they would, they will never. Like I didn't have God when I was in those relationships. So like I put my all into these relationships, and like that was my whole reason for existing, was these men. And I, like Nate said, I always ended up disappointed because like they could not fill the hole that was left inside my heart. And there's like some pretty big holes that needed filling.
Yeah. And like obviously deeper issues that need to be worked on and resolved, but like they'll never satisfy that longing and that happiness that you're looking for. You'll never get that full satisfaction from them because they weren't meant to fill that hole.
It's a Jesus-shaped hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Like only Christ can complete you. Because that's what He was meant to do, and like what we were meant for. We were meant to be in relationship with God and with Christ. And obviously we fell away from that with Adam and Eve, and ever since things have gotten worse and worse. But there's a lot of longing out there, and a lot of people are going around with that Christ-shaped hole in their heart and not knowing that He's the only thing that can fit it and fix it.
They literally don't even know. But side note, I literally saw a TikTok, I think it was today or yesterday, and this has absolutely nothing to do with dating, okay? But this woman on TikTok said that she isn't a Christian, and she wants every Christian to know that if she died and like didn't believe there was a God, she doesn't believe there's a God, but she said she died, didn't believe there's a God. And she was literally going down this list of all the things she did. Like when she gets to the gates of heaven, she's going to tell God, like, I did this and this and this. And God's going to look at her and be like, oh, you lived a good life, but because you didn't believe in me, you're going to hell. And she's like, if your God is so merciful, then He wouldn't send someone who lived a good life down to hell. And I literally commented, and I'm like, first of all, I didn't say it word for word, but this is what I'm thinking. First of all, your place in heaven is not earned by good works. It's earned by having a faith in Jesus Christ and like Jesus Christ's sacrifice for you on the cross. If you don't believe in him and what he did for you, then you're not going to heaven. Like, sorry to say, no matter what good things that you think you did on earth, whatever your definition of good is, that's not going to get you into heaven. And that has nothing to do with God's character. God is just. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, there's not a single human being on earth who, relying on their own good works, could make it into heaven based on their own merit.
Exactly.
Not a single human being, not the best human being who ever lived in existence, could ever make it into heaven based on their own merit, because the qualifications for heaven is perfection, and no human being, no sinful fallen human being could ever achieve that. That's why Christ had to come down and sacrifice himself on the cross as the perfect sacrifice, living the perfect life to atone for the sins of imperfect sinners.
Preach it, brother.
Yeah. You know, that's why he had to come down, because we could never, ever earn heaven. Ever.
I know. And like, that's the thing that these people don't understand. And I don't want to say these people, but what I mean by that is people who don't believe and refuse to acknowledge God. Like, when we talk about the blasphemy and how that's the unforgivable sin, the unforgivable sin is is not believing in Jesus Christ and the continuous disregard for his existence and what he did, and like completely neglecting to admit that he is who he says he is. And that's what Jesus was telling the Pharisees in the Gospels. It's like, you know what? Like the sin of disbelief and continued disobedience is the sin that is unforgivable.
Yeah, I've heard that's well, basically exactly what you said, but like, it's the knowledge of Christ, the knowledge of God, the knowledge of what he did on the cross and what he accomplished on the cross, and the knowledge of all of that, and then continuing to not only disbelieve, but also go, no thanks, I want to live life my way.
What do you think of people who say that they're going to live their life their way, and then on their deathbed, they're going to accept Jesus Christ? Do you think that's a genuine acceptance, or do you think that's just a cop-out?
First of all, I think that's the dumbest game plan ever, because we could be taken out at any time. Like, there's no guarantee you have this afternoon, let alone another 40 or 50 years.
You could die this minute.
I could pass away on this podcast. Like,
but you
the Lord could take me right now. But, you know, that's the thing, is that we're not guaranteed our next breath.
That's true, yeah.
We're not guaranteed our next breath. It's only by the grace of God that we get it. But
thank God I found Jesus.
Yeah. So like, that's what I mean. So I think banking on the fact that you're going to have a chance on your deathbed, that you're even going to have a deathbed to repent on, is really taking a huge, massive risk and gamble, and it's not worth it.
No, exactly.
It is not worth it. If you actually truly believe that there could be a heaven or earth, that is worth exploring now. Not heaven and earth, sorry. If you actually believe that there could be a heaven and hell, and that there could be a savior and a God who wants a relationship with you, that is worth exploring and finding out for yourself right now while you have the chance.
Yes, exactly. Exactly what Nate said. Listen to him.
Yeah. Because
don't do that stupid plan that people say they're going to do, or when people tell you that they're going to do that, be bold and tell them that is the stupidest thing
and not only,
I've ever heard.
Yeah. And not only that, their heart posture is wrong to begin with. Going in with the attitude of, I'm going to live my life how I want and do all these sinful things I know are wrong, but because I know that there's a loving, forgiving God, I'm going to just ask for that forgiveness I know he'll give in the end so I can get to heaven. Mm-hmm. That's not true acceptance, and that's not true repentance. And he's going to see that, and he's going to know your heart posture and go, depart from me, I never knew you.
Ooh, the words that no Christian wants to hear.
No, that are the most terrifying words that you could ever hear. And I hope, like, I never hear those. Like, you know, I have Christ, and thank God for, like, literally thank God for him and his sacrifice on the cross. And the fact that I'm a continual screw up, and I'm going to be a continual screw up until the end of my days. But because I have him and that he lived the perfect life, I will get heaven based on his account and his merits.
I think the fact that you're even worried about hearing those words shows that your heart's in the right place and your faith is like in the right place.
And I don't know if this is like our pastor our old pastor, or if it was someone else who said it first. I can't remember exactly, but I do remember hearing that the only reason that God will say when he says, "Why do you deserve heaven?" is for the believers, because Jesus will be standing beside us and say, "He's with me." And that's the only reason. And that's the most profound. And honestly, it made me tear up and it made me cry a little, because that's unbelievable that I'm a screw up and I deserve to be apart from God. I don't deserve heaven. I mess up. I sin. I always fall short of the glory of God, as Paul says.
You've got an attitude.
Yeah, I can have an attitude, and so can
Salty.
you. Okay, hang on.
Angry.
Okay, here we go.
Grumpy.
All right, this is not.
Wake up on the wrong side of Betty.
This is not.
This is the Call It Out Nate podcast.
No, this is this is not what they talk about when they talk about what's. Oh man, I can't even think of the word right now.
Can't even think you.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways,
you see what I have to deal with.
We've gone way off topic.
But
so
anyway,
let's just reel it in.
First off, last thought on that note before we go back to the whole dating and all that stuff is that that's the most profound and most emotional picture I've ever imagined. That when I get to Judgment Day and God says, "Why should I let you in?" I don't know if he's going to say that or whatever, but if that's what he says, that the only reason I'm going to be able to say I deserve it is because I'm with him and I can point to Jesus, or Jesus is going to say he's with me. And that's, like I said, the most profound thought or imagery that I've ever thought of, that really convicted my heart and made me feel like, wow, thank God for Christ's sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, circling back to the original topic of this whole podcast.
Dating.
So yeah, that was a big thing in the beginning, is that. And then I think the other thing, kind of big difference between Christian dating and non-Christian dating, is boundaries.
Yeah, I was going to say that the biggest thing that was a real shell shocker, is that a word?
Shell shock, yeah.
Yeah, that was a real shell shock for me, was the boundaries that we had to put in place and that your parents even put in place for us.
Yep. So that was a big thing even in my first relationship, was boundaries, like, not allowed to be under the same blanket together, not allowed to be in the same room with the door closed, not allowed in bedrooms together, like that kind of thing that really separates, I feel like, Christians from non-Christians. Mm-hmm. Not saying we're always perfect, but it helps
protect you more.
It's things that are put in place to help prevent the temptation, to help protect you from yourself, honestly.
Yeah, I think, okay, so I'm going to go into a little bit of how different it was when I came out of these worldly relationships and when I entered into our dating relationship.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So the first of all, when I was in these relationships, like, let's just say the last two relationships I was in, the 4-year relationship one, and then Jesse for that 1 year before you and I met. So both of those relationships, like, I lived with these men. I lived with these boys. We slept in the same bed. We were obviously intimate before marriage. And we did not have any boundaries at all in place at all. And then when I entered a relationship with you, it was a real shell shock, like I said, because there's so much, I'm a 20, I think we met when I was 22 or 21.
Yeah, I think I would have been 21. Because I'm 27 now and we dated for 6 years. So that sounds about right.
Yeah. So I would have been
or not dated, but we've been together for 6 years. 3 years dating and almost 3 years married.
Yeah. So I was 22 when we met. And going from those relationships where I slept in the same bed and I lived with them and there was literally no rules and no boundaries at all. And then going and entering into our relationship where we weren't allowed in the bedroom together. We weren't allowed to have the door shut. We weren't even allowed to be under the same blanket on the couch together. It was oh my gosh. Am I back in elementary school? Am I back in early high school? It was a real change for me.
Yeah, I can imagine as a non-Christian coming from that life to this to be what the heck, am I going back in time? Am I 5 years old again or something like that? But
I think I literally said that to you.
I'm pretty sure you did, yeah. And that's definitely, I mean, it's not easy being a Christian. Like, you don't want all these boundaries in place. You're, like I said, sinful heart. You don't want to have all these boundaries. You don't want to have these protections in place. But you do for your own sake.
But I think like it's so much harder for a person who is not raised Christian to go from living one way and then completely having to live another way. Mm-hmm. And I was so early in my faith at this point that I was like, why does this need to happen? I was questioning a lot.
You did,
and like I was a bad influence for sure.
Yeah, but I remember you getting upset at times like that and thinking, this is so stupid. Like,
I'm like a 22-year-old woman who's been on her own for the last like 3 years of her life.
Yeah.
And now I feel like a child again.
Yeah, I know.
But growing in your faith and looking back, I realized that was for the best. And like, it was for my own protection, because like when you're caught up in the temptation of being sexual or, you know, doing like caught up in temptation at all, it's hard to get yourself out of that once you've entered into that state. And like, because when you do enter into that state and when you do commit these acts, like you are building or you're forming ties with these people who are not your husband. And that is a real dangerous thing to do, because you're giving a part of your soul away to someone who hasn't earned it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, looking back, I definitely regret doing those things. But at the same time, I feel like I wouldn't have the same perspective or be where I am today if I didn't experience all that.
I can understand that sentiment. You know, like it gives you a different perspective that will be more relatable to other people who didn't grow up Christian and that kind of thing. And God can use that past for his glory and for the help of, you know, new children in Christ. Mm-hmm. Who grew up in the same type of background that you did. But I also respect and understand the sentiment of wishing that you hadn't done those things as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, so true. Like that's one of those, I think that's one of like, honestly, I think it's one of the devil's like main tactics. And like one of the hardest battles to fight is the battle of temptation. And especially when you're in a relationship, like sexual temptation, because you love that person, or you know, when you're not married, like you are in love with that person, and you can kind of start to justify in your head like, oh, like I am in love with this person,
they're gonna be my partner.
Yeah, they're gonna be my partner, I am gonna marry them, so like what difference does it make? But like it makes all the difference to God, and it makes all the difference to your relationship.
Sorry, I keep interrupting.
That's okay.
You never know what's going to happen in that relationship. Like you could, like it could end and then you would have committed the act, and there's no taking that back.
It's true.
Like you can ask for forgiveness to God, but there's no taking back that part of you unless you like reclaim it for yourself, which like I've done with my therapist. But it's really hard to like let go of people, especially when you've committed that act with them too.
For sure. And
it's harder to move on.
It can be a barrier, and also like a barrier to your new relationship, especially if they did grow up Christian. And like, you know, like myself, like it was, you know, you having that past when we first started dating, or like before we started dating, like when we did get to know each other, and I, you know, knew these things about you, and we had a lot of life chats and a lot of long talks and that kind of thing. So I knew a lot, but like, you know, that was a huge thing for me at the beginning that I had to deal with, that I never imagined I'd have to deal with growing up Christian, thinking I would only date Christians.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think I'd have to deal with that kind of barrier and aspect, I guess. But I did. And like, you know, through the grace of God, I did get over it and that kind of thing. And, you know, it's been like not been an issue since. But like that was a hurdle in the beginning. And sometimes it might be a hurdle that might hurt the chances of a relationship in that regard.
Yeah. I was always really open with you about my past, about that too. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, hearing that it did hurt you, like you told me this already long ago when it was happening, but like back then when you did tell me that it was like something you had to get over, I was really worried that like you were going to end the relationship based on my past.
Yeah.
And I had accepted Christ at that point when we did discuss this. I think, was it something we discussed before we got together?
I'm pretty sure it's something that we discussed before we got together. And
okay,
I think it was something that I was dealing with then, and like whether it was something I wanted to pursue at that point. And I obviously did have feelings for you and I wanted to pursue a relationship, but I was obviously also waiting to see if you, like, I obviously, like, took the equally yoked thing very serious.
He did.
And I wanted to wait and see if you came to Christ on your own
Before
we got together and before we dated. And I know she hated me for that because she was
oh my gosh. This guy, he was like the biggest tease ever. And not in a sexual way, but like in an emotional way.
I was not.
You were too.
I liked you and I was trying to be a good friend, but I also tried to not give you any hint that I was into you so that it wouldn't hurt you if I chose not to go through a relationship with you.
You know what hurt me? Was the fact that I was like begging for some sort of like proof that you liked me.
Assurance or something like that. Yeah.
We literally hung out, like we were friends. We hung out every single day for like
I think a month. Yeah.
It was a month. And some of these days we would hang out till like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
4 a.m.
That's also not a good thing.
Don't do that. But like we would hang out till 4 a.m. And like, I think your parents got mad at you for that.
They did get mad at me.
Because I had to work like the next morning.
And we were just chatting. Like we were literally just talking and watching like The Office because we both love The Office. But like
we didn't want to like leave
didn't want to leave. Yeah. It was just like that infatuation period where we didn't want to leave each other.
I thought this guy really liked me. And I was like, we would text after when I got home. And I'm like, I remember the one time I was like, yeah, I'm just the lame girl with the crush on the guy. And you're like, yeah. You're like, you're not lame. And I was like, I'm begging you.
Yeah.
Give me something to go on.
I did not want to like, I didn't want to lead you on. That was the biggest thing. But I also feel like I probably did because you were hanging out. So
we were hanging out
anyways,
so much,
doesn't matter now because we're now married. But anyways.
I'm
I know you'll always hold that against me. I know. But anyways. What were we even talking about now?
I don't know. But I wanted to like hear what your experience with our dating was
like the whole getting it was the whole getting over it thing. But yeah, it was like at the beginning
like what was your first impression of me? Actually, you should tell them the story of when I messaged you.
Yeah, when she messaged me, she had messaged me like can't remember how long it was before, maybe a month before. I think it was about my piano play. No, that was the first the first time I messaged you when it was like us getting to actually know each other. You messaged me about my music. That's what it was. So you messaged me about because I was okay. So
oh my gosh, start the story over.
Yeah, I got to start the story over. I got to reel back in here. So I was a singer songwriter, and I can't really claim that anymore. I don't really write.
You
songs
said you
too much
were.
Anymore.
You said I was.
Yeah. So I was a singer songwriter back at that time, and I was pursuing a career in music. I think I discussed this in the last podcast. But yeah, so I was doing that at that time. So I was posting a lot of music content, posting a lot of my own songs, covers, and that kind of thing. And Susie messaged me out of the blue on Facebook, I think it was.
It was Facebook.
I was at the gym when it happened.
You never told me that.
Yeah, I was at the gym when it happened. I was on the treadmill doing the dreaded cardio.
You hate cardio.
I hate cardio. But anyway, so I was at the gym at that point, and you messaged me saying about how you love my music. Okay, no. This was when I was at home.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, hang on a sec. Scratch that. I'm remembering it better now. I was at home when you messaged me the first time about my music, and it seemed like you were into me because you were like, love your music and that kind of thing. And then you were like, and you're a ginger. I love gingers or something like that. And then I was like, I would ask you some other questions, and then you were like, yeah, my boyfriend's a ginger too. And I was like, oh, okay.
And like hearing what I said, I'm like, oh, I crossed the line.
Yeah.
Oh man, that should have been your first red flag about me.
So I left it alone at that point. I was like, okay, she's with someone. So I didn't message you anymore after that. And like, I didn't try and engage in anything after that. And then you messaged me again. No, I messaged you one time because I was at the gym. That was the thing.
You messaged me.
I messaged you the one time because I was at the gym and I thought I saw you, but I never like going up to people who I think are someone I think they are in public in case they aren't the person I think they are.
Oh, right. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that message now.
Yeah. So I don't like doing that. So if I can avoid it, I will message them and be like, hey, are you here right now? If I have the time or if they're in the same position or place or whatever. And you're like, no, it's not. Whenever I don't go to that gym, I go to my apartment gym or whatever. So that was the only.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, that was the only reason I messaged you was because I just thought I saw you at the gym and I didn't want to go up and say hi if it wasn't actually you. Thank God I didn't because it wasn't. But
I'm
yeah.
going back in our messages right now, actually.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get that far back. Anyways, so that was the end of our conversations and the end of our interactions until I was out for breakfast the one day with my family.
Uh-huh.
And I was sitting at the table and I had saw you had posted something very dramatic on Facebook about the end of your relationship.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Oh my gosh.
You're basically calling out your ex.
What did I say? Do you remember?
You were calling him out. I don't know if I say it on the podcast, but so anyway, so I had saw something you had posted earlier that day on Facebook about basically being single and didn't think anything of it.
Rude.
Like I did, but I also didn't because I was like, she just ended the relationship. Like, I'm not going to be that guy.
Meanwhile, I was already looking. I was already scouting. Not even an hour later.
What,
scouting.
for me?
No, for anybody.
Oh, yeah, rude. Anyways.
Just kidding. No, I actually wasn't this time. I promised myself I'd be single.
And that didn't work out. So anyway.
I was single for a month. That was the longest ever.
Anywho, I was out for breakfast that day and my sister, who knew Susannah, again, I think this relationship was discussed.
Oh, back up.
Susannah.
What'd you just call me?
Susie, sorry.
Yeah, you only call me Susie.
I call you Susannah sometimes. You're on my phone as Susannah.
You call me Susannah when you're mad at me.
Okay, Susannah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Susie to you, bud.
Anyways, my sister knew Susie. I think this was discussed in the last podcast. Did her nails for years. Kind of pitched me to her mother all the time, even though we were both in relationships.
Yeah. Okay, hold. My mom would come back from her my mom would come back from her appointments with your sister and literally be like, "Oh, you should date Nate. He's so nice." Meanwhile, she full well knew I was in a relationship with someone at this point. I don't remember who. But I was like, I searched him up on I searched you up on Facebook and I was like, he's not my type. But I was also intrigued because you had a girlfriend. Like, you were dating your ex at this point. So I was like,
I was your type. You just were being like, meh.
No. Yeah, I was. I was trying to be respectful of my ex, but I thought you were cute and I did want to message you, but I didn't. And you were with your ex and I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. My sister knew her and she, at breakfast with my family, brought up, she's like, guess who's single? And I knew immediately who she was talking about. And I was like, yeah, I saw that on Facebook today. And she's like, ooh, she's like, you should ask her out. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. She literally just broke up with her boyfriend. I'm not going to be that guy. And then I went to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, like as I was washing my hands, guess who messages me? None other than my wife herself, not then, but like Susie, messages me about a piano video that I posted the night before when I went to Long and McQuaid's.
It was so good.
I found the video. She wants me to play it, so I'm going to play it right now. This was the video where she messaged me the day after I posted it. Basically complimenting my skills.
I've literally watched this
I
video
don't even play
times.
piano. Like I literally learned a few songs and I play guitar. Like that's what I play. I play guitar and I sing, but this is what it sounded like. So as you can hear in the video, I'm not much of a piano player. I screwed up quite a few times in there.
I didn't notice.
Well, I did. But anywho, she messaged me after the day after that and was basically complimenting that and all that stuff. So we chatted a bit. And then I went back to the table at breakfast and I literally was so mad at my sister. I was like, did you say something to her? And she's like, no, why? And I was like, because she just messaged me out of nowhere, literally right after talking about her. She messaged me. And then she's like, ask her out. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And we fought about that back and forth for a little bit at breakfast. And I ended up asking you to a movie that night.
With your sister.
Which we attended with my sister because I didn't want it to seem like I was coming on to you immediately as soon as you broke up with your boyfriend.
I mean, you wouldn't have been the first.
Okay, whatever. But anyways, I didn't want to be that guy. So I invited you because you knew her. I thought you'd be more comfortable with her and yada yada. Anyway, that happened and the rest is history. But
yeah, and then we talked about The Office during the it
did,
before the movie started?
It was in the previews, yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about The Office, and then we immediately knew each other was the one.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and then the next day I think we met up for Starbucks and we talked like for 4 hours that day.
That's where you told me about Jesus.
I did, yeah. Immediately the day after.
The day after, and then I started kind of pursuing my faith on my own, trying to learn more.
I mean, I talked to you quite a bit about it for, I think it's throughout the month, and then eventually was coming to that point. At one point, you asked me, I think you wanted a Bible or something like that, and so I bought you a Bible.
You bought me my first, well, not my first Bible, but my first, like, Bible in my Christian era.
Yeah, and then the rest is history, as I said again.
What attracted you to me? Like, what did you like about me when we first started talking?
I thought you were obviously very attractive.
Score.
I thought you were beautiful and very attractive, and so that was something. And I just like, okay, I think I'm like kind of, I wanted to get to know you, so that's why I invited you to the movie to kind of at least open the door to more hangouts.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day is when we really got into discussing a lot of things that I discovered a lot of similarities, and like even with music choices, TV shows, a lot of similarities there. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So we literally kept hanging out every single day for hours on end.
I was so tired that whole month.
Yeah. for a month basically. And then I think I asked you to be my girlfriend at that point, and then we started dating.
Yeah. I was so happy.
Quickest conversion in history. Nailed it.
But like, I literally was so happy when you asked me out finally. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, he actually likes me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't being led on. Because like, that's a lot of effort and time to put into somebody that you may not be dating. Like hanging out every single day. You drove me to work a few times.
I drove you to work like a handful of times at like 6 in the morning, might I add you.
My muffler was taped to my car.
6 in the morning. I don't get up at 6 in the morning for myself. But anyways.
My muffler was actually taped to my car.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I remember that. It was duct taped. But yeah, so I drove you to work quite a few times, very early in the morning. And I was exhausted. Drank a lot of coffee that month. But yeah, anyway, so I think, that was like a big thing, was like, obviously at first glance, you're very attractive. You're very beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Of course. And then getting to know you, I saw a lot of similarities, and we joked together a lot and had a lot of fun together and that kind of thing. And then I was waiting to see if you'd accept Christ on your own. And then I decided to, okay, enough evidence is stacked up that this is worth pursuing. And then, then I pursued it. So.
Yeah. Thank the Lord for that.
So, that was the biggest thing.
I thought you were like so handsome and cool. Little did I know you were a giant nerd. But like, nerds make the best husbands, just so you know. Don't always go for the cool guy, because the nerds are the best. Yeah,
we're not out at the bar hitting on women. We're at home playing video games.
Yeah, and that's where you want them to be, is at home.
Yep.
Playing the video games with the men. No girls, but men. But like, no, you have such great style. And then you also like had this cross necklace that you wore all the time.
Yeah.
It's like this black cross necklace. He doesn't wear it anymore, sadly. But it was literally the most attractive thing that I've ever seen on a man ever. So you need to wear it again.
Okay.
It needs to be a part of your everyday routine.
Okay.
That's kind of like a bit into our dating history. So let's get into talking about like standards. Let's say that you were single for more than a year after you and your ex broke up, and it's been like a few years. Would you have settled for less, do you think? Or would you have kept with your like morals and like being equally yoked and everything like that? Or would you have settled because you wanted to have somebody?
I think I still would have, I wouldn't have settled. I think I still would have looked for everything that I wanted in a future partner, because I wasn't looking for anyone when I was single in that year. I was just obviously dealing with the aftermath of the breakup of a long-term relationship. And then at a certain point, I was just enjoying being single and hanging out with my friends, and literally was just doing whatever I wanted to do at that point. Like hanging out with friends till late at night, going out to movies, playing pool, just getting a bite late at night with my buddies and chatting and playing video games till like 2 a.m. And
okay, so Nate and his friend Owen, shout out to Owen.
Again.
Again. But he and Nate and him would say that they would go to the gym, or they would go to the gym, and then right after they go, no, wait, they wouldn't go.
We would get together being like, hey, want to hit the gym? And then we would get together, start chatting on the way to the gym, decide to go to McDonald's instead.
Instead of actually getting fit, the exact opposite.
Yeah, exact opposite. And then get food, hang out, and then he would go home, and then we'd play video games together till like 2 or 3 a.m. At this point, I was working a job that was mainly evenings and like nights. So like I slept a lot during the day. So like I was staying up late at night a lot. So we'd stay up till like 2, 3 a.m. playing video games, and then I'd go to bed, wake up at like 10 or 11. And but anyway, so it got to the point where we literally started calling the Golden Arches the gym. So anytime we'd say, you want to go to the gym, we'd have to clarify if they meant the actual gym or McDonald's.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So that was a big thing during that year there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was just enjoying being single near the end there. I wasn't looking for anyone. So I think I just would have kept waiting and kept my standards until I found the person who was what I was looking for.
I think we've talked about this. Like I asked you before we started the podcast, like how to be content in singleness. And we had someone reach out kind of asking the same question. And like you literally said, you just did things. Like you went out and had fun. You didn't think too much about it. You weren't looking for anybody. You just like filled your time with like spending time with friends and doing things you wanted to do. Yeah. So like, yeah, I haven't had any experience in singleness for long periods of time, so I can't relate to this, but Nate can.
I mean, like, and like for some people, a year isn't that long for being single. Like some people are talking
16 years before that, dude.
Well, okay, yeah, I know, and I was kind of like hoping for a relationship at that point too, but like, you know, you have the desire to share, you know, experiences with someone else, and like just wanting to have someone to be around and be your best friend and joke and laugh together and create memories with. But I mean, in terms of like between relationships, 1 year isn't really that long for, you know, some people it might be 3 years, 4 years or longer. And like, I can understand that getting hard at that point because you've had the experience of all that I just talked about previously. The big thing is like, you have to take the time from your last relationship to get over it, to truly heal and move on. And then, yeah, I know you're laughing over there because you're like, it didn't happen. But anyways.
For me anyway.
Yeah. But for me, yeah, like I took the time to do that. And then the rest of the time, like, I just started focusing on myself and like things that I wanted to do and things that made me happy. So like for me, I was going to the gym a lot, and like the actual gym, not McDonald's. I was also doing that a lot too, but I was also going to the gym like 6 nights a week, essentially. Like I was going there consistently because
you were
I
fit
always
when we first met.
Yeah, thanks.
So he was really fit when we first started dating. Then we both went through a phase where we were really fat.
Yeah.
Like we both were like super fat because we were eating out all the time.
I've never ever been that fat in my life.
We look back on pictures and we're like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And then he went through a phase where he was really skinny due to health issues.
Yeah.
And then now he's at like where he was when we first met.
No, not quite. I'm still trying to put that.
I think you look great.
I mean, I'm just still trying to put that muscle back on. Like that was 3 years of working out consistently, like 5 to 6 days a week. I was like 170 something pounds, and it was mostly muscle. So like I'm working my way back up there. But
he's being too humble. He looks great.
Oh, thank you. But anyway, so yeah, like that was a big thing for me at the time. Like I enjoyed going to the gym, so I would literally go there and work out for like 2 hours, and like most of the time I would have a buddy with me. So like some of that time would be spent just chatting and like hanging out, and not gossiping, just chatting and hanging out, and then joking around, and then obviously working out as well. And then like going out to eat with friends. Like a lot of my friends were single at that point too. So like I would go out to eat with my friends. And I also worked at a restaurant where at that point in time where I was working a lot of evenings. So like I said, I'd get off at like 11:30 and then go to the gym after that and be up until like 2 or 3 in the morning. Not healthy, but that was my life.
Imagine. I would be dead.
That was my life for like 4 years. And I loved it. But anyways, I'm a night owl. So yeah, I did really enjoy that. But yeah, so I would go to the gym a lot with usually from buddies from work, or like I would, after my shift, we would go to Boston Pizza at the time, which was like 2 minutes down the road from my work, and like get a drink and get some food and hang out, chat, and again, joke around. And like it was a lot of like going to the gym, playing video games, making music. I was focusing on like,
you were gigging a lot?
I was gigging a lot. So like I would play a lot of gigs. I would also was recording my own music and my songs and writing them and that kind of thing. So like I had a lot that I was doing that was like my own passions and my own things that made me happy. And so I was just kind of focusing on those things.
Yeah, if you guys want to listen to Nate's songs or check
They're
them out
not,
on YouTube.
Okay. Some of them are good.
Nathan
like
James.
Some of them are decent, but the first album is not good at all.
Is it Nathan James or is it Nate Friesen on Spotify?
I think it's Nate James. Nate James Music.
Nate James, Nate Friesen. Just check
or
him
Nathan
out.
James.
Try
I can't remember.
Just searching his name and it would be.
I can't remember. But yeah, so like, okay, yeah, don't listen to the first album, but stuff after that is usually all right.
Who I Am is my favorite song. No, what? It's my favorite song that you do.
No, like I think the last.
Also, all of his songs are about his ex for the most part. So imagine being in a relationship with a musician and then him releasing songs about his ex-girlfriend and hearing him sing them at gigs, having to sit there with a smile on your face. Meanwhile, you're dying inside.
The last EP and a couple of the singles are pretty decent. But anyway, yeah, I focused on things that I enjoyed and that made me happy. And like, I think that's important when you're being single, is trying to find happiness. Okay, first of all, obviously with God, that's a big thing. Making sure that, you know, you're content and God is ultimately what fulfills you and your relationship with him. But also doing things that make you happy and like feel fulfilled within yourself as well. Mm-hmm. For me, that was music and video games and hanging out with my buddies. So I did a lot of that during that time. And then I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't really looking. It just kind of was like, almost like God just was like, hey, here's a sign.
Yeah, he gave you multiple signs during our relationship too. Like, gave you that sign, which is me just being desperate. And no, I didn't message you with the intent of dating you. I messaged you because I liked your music and wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
I was also really sad, so I wanted to make someone else feel better, but
wow, so it was a pity thing, eh?
No, I just wanted to like make someone else happy.
Yeah.
Because like I didn't have anyone after that. Like I had my family, but not really. And then, you know, my friends all had their own boyfriends and whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we can wrap it up now. But like for the most part, I hope you just take away from this podcast. Like I hope you enjoyed the story times, first of all.
Yeah.
Because like we don't really go into stories about our relationship much. And then just like make sure you prioritize God above all else.
Absolutely.
Don't go chasing after boys or women. Like God's plan for you will happen and will be fulfilled regardless of what you try to do, because like God is so powerful and like we're not. So
yeah, last thought, I honestly didn't think I would find anyone again after my last relationship ended.
Really?
Yeah, I just didn't think I would. I was just like, no one's gonna. I had low self-esteem, but yeah. So anyway, God brought her into my life about a year later. But yeah, that's a big thing. Prioritize God in your own life, in your personal life. Find your fulfillment and your happiness in him.
Don't settle.
Don't settle, and
be equally yoked.
Be equally yoked is a big thing.
Yeah, don't like go into a relationship with like an unbeliever thinking that you're going to change them,
or you can convert them. But
that's not how to start a relationship.
No, that's not a good way to start a relationship, and I think it's just setting things up. That's why I like tried to plant the seed with Susie and just like introduce her to Christ. She was obviously very sad at that time, and like the hope and happiness I had in Christ I wanted to share with her. But I was like firm in my commitment to wait to see, not try and convert her, but wait to see that if she would accept Christ herself.
Yeah, you never pressured me at
No.
all. We just hung out and had a good time, and you'd like occasionally talk about him.
Yeah.
And like I think we went to church.
I think I brought you to church once or twice, yeah.
Yeah. And you brought me to church, and I think I cried like that first time. But like you never once pressured me, and I never want anyone to think that you did try to pressure me.
No.
You just offered me what I've been searching for my whole life.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like, I wasn't trying to convert her because I'm like, oh, she's attractive. I need to make her into a Christian so I can date her.
No.
It was just like, I saw someone who was sad and broken, and like knowing a bit of details about her past relationship, you know, I wanted to offer the hope that I had, but not obviously force it on her or, you know, try and coerce her into becoming a Christian so that I could date her, whatever, you know. It was just like, I wanted to offer that up and tell her about what fuels my soul and makes me happy and completes me, then let her do with that as she will. And it came up multiple times again throughout our relationship, not like our friendship, that during that month, not through my own prodding or anything like that, but just through natural conversations.
Yeah.
And then she ended up coming to Christ on her own. And so that's when I knew, like, okay, I think this is something worth pursuing. So big thing there. And I hope that you found some takeaways through this that will help you with your relationship endeavors. I mean, I'm not an expert. Like I said, I've only had 2 relationships.
I'm not an expert either, and I've had like more than I can count on my hands.
But like, I mean, yeah, I think I've learned quite a bit, and I've grown quite a bit, and I hope that something I've shared with you guys and we've shared with you guys is going to help you guys with discerning in your future relationships or in your relationship pursuits.
Yeah. And there's like no rush. I know society puts a lot of rush onto getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend or getting married. Like I know, especially in like Utah, I've never lived there, but from what I've heard and from what I've seen like YouTube, they really, really push marriage at a young age.
Yeah,
so like it's like 18 or 19 that they start pushing marriage.
Wow.
But like there's no rush. Grow into yourself as an adult first if you have the opportunity to do that. Like you can still get to know somebody, but don't try to make something happen in your timing because you think there's like a countdown on when it should happen.
Absolutely.
Because there's not. And like if you try to push something and make something happen in your timing, guaranteed it's not going to be good and fruitful. Take it from me. I pushed like relationships and I would like try so hard to make something happen because I was so scared of being alone and thought that I had to have a man in my life to be complete. Granted, that wasn't how I felt when I talked to Nate, because at that point, like I made a vow to myself, like I'm going to be single for a little bit. And that happened. Like we were friends, we hung out, but we weren't dating. So yeah, there's no rush. Just focus on God above all and build your relationship with him first. He should be your priority.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I guess we should end it here.
Yeah.
We're going to finish our movie because like we kind of paused it in the middle.
And started a podcast.
Like, we're going to do a podcast episode.
Yeah.
But
very random, but yeah.
Before we go, I just want to shout out this company, Ditch the Frogs. I'm wearing their shirt right now. If you watch my Instagram stories on April 29th, you would have seen it that I was wearing this shirt. But it says, find your prince on the shirt. And then it says, Ditch the Frogs on the back. And like the prince, Jesus. Find Jesus first. Ditch the frogs. Ditch all the frogs, man. Like, you're not going to be happy with those frogs. You're going to be happy in Jesus.
Ditch the imitations, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Take it from someone who's lived it, you know? Find your prince. Find Jesus. And then another prince will follow. And then hopefully be your husband or or wife.
Or girlfriend or wife.
Actually, a wife can't be a prince.
Yeah.
Yeah. Find Jesus, and then hopefully another prince will follow, which is your husband or princess.
Yeah.
If you're a man.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of the Lay It Down podcast.
Season 2.
Woo woo. Oh, I hate myself. Who am I? Oh my gosh. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. For those godly women out there, if you didn't know, I released my book, In Her Image, A Journey to Embodying Biblical Womanhood, where we take a look at 6 biblical women and Jesus and look at all their stories and what they can teach us. So if you want to look into that and do the Bible study with me, make sure you check that out on Amazon. It's available in most marketplaces. So check out, just type in Her Image, Susannah Friesen, and you should find it there. And make sure you tag me in your stories when you get it. I'd love to see you guys getting it and loving it and just, God blessing you with it. So anyways, we're going to end the episode now. I'm done ranting. I'm done, shouting out my book.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Shameless promo. But yeah.
God loves you all.
We love you all.
And until next time. If you haven't had enough of the Lay It Down podcast, you can follow at Susannah.Friesen on Instagram or at Susannah Friesen on TikTok for more daily godly encouragement. If you like the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review because it really, really helps us out and reach more people. God bless and see you next time.